So I was at Pilates last night. There's quite a large female demographic in Pilates, but it was recommended to me when I had my SI joint injury by a physiotherapist. It's something that I've done in the past in the marriage, and it's also something that's actually been quite beneficial. And actually reminds me a lot with the cardio and the strength work and all that, and the fact that it works your body, your whole body at the same time. It reminds me actually a lot when I was doing the Shaolin Kung Fu, because it was very cardio driven. So it's been something that's been quite beneficial, and even though I've basically recovered from the SI joint injury, I've kept it up. I've even got a session tonight. But what I do notice of myself now that, I ended the marriage quite a while ago now. Well, not quite a while ago, but over, was it 3 years or 4 years? You kind of lose track after a time. But it's something where, and as I've said, I like looking towards other relationships, been doing a lot of work on myself from having such a damaging relationship, and rebuilding a lot of self-worth and just self-value within oneself, self-love, self-confidence, all these sorts of things that got torn down when not only just in the marriage, but also growing up. When I do look around at the different women there, I am now a single person. I am now free to start hopefully a healthier relationship and grow with a new person. The trouble is the looking around part. And when I do look around, I found last night, and I do have noticed this over the past, but I've not really given it much thought until now, that I'm not looking, and not as in like I'm not looking as I'm not interested. I'm not looking as in I'm looking down. I'm trying not to make eye contact. I'm looking away. If people are saying hello, I'm being very courteous but not engaging. And that's really not a good way to get to know someone, when they're avoiding eye contact and they're not wanting to engage with you. It's not really how a rapport is supposed to happen. And I was thinking about why this is, and it's really a no-brainer. I mean, it didn't take a lot of thought. It's conditioning. You might think, well, it's shyness. He's looking away. He's blushing. Someone's showing him attention. He's fumbling his words, sort of thing. That's not the emotion that's being stirred up within me. It's more based upon fear, and fear more based upon repercussions of what might happen if I do. And I'm still acting upon old conditioning that's happening there. And to give an example of that is, even though the marriage has ended and all that, I have approached people. It's not been successful, of course, but one of the things is, like, I don't like living in regret. So, like, if there is an interest being shown, then I kind of want to explore that to see. So I will actually have the confidence to ask the person. But another thing is, like, my parents divorced quite early. So I was raised mainly by my mother. So it's actually more natural for me to talk to females than it is to males, because I've not really had like the blokey role model of it. If anything, I've had more of a father that was very despondent and heavy on the alcohol, and not really good with emotions, which my sister found out one day. I'm more familiar with like talking to females. Like, it's more, I have no issues around that sort of thing. But the issue that I have when I'm at Pilates or anywhere else sort of thing, not just Pilates, is that I'm looking away based upon fear of repercussions of what has happened in the marriage. So I guess to give a bit of an explanation of why I might be fearful to actually make eye contact and engage, is because when it comes to manipulation, and this is probably what I've tried to express to friends, what is happening when, like, say, when I was out with the ex and we're being shown as all this great sort of stuff, it's way different behind closed doors. When I ended the marriage, it wasn't the first time that I ended the marriage. I tried to end it before, like once before, and the ex actually went to stay with a friend. and the friend who was a psychologist, the ex is actually a social worker. So if you're thinking, well, this is some random person that has no understanding of like some form of psychology or human interaction, then no, the ex-wife was a social worker. I was probably friends with a lot of psychologists and different people in the medical field because I work in this field. She went to stay with a psychologist friend, and we'd known this friend for quite some time. I was friends with her. I remember the ex actually relating to me when we were actually trying to mend things together and I was getting a marriage counsellor involved, was that like the friend goes, well, even though this person seems to be very bad, you seem to be speaking a lot of good about them. And I want you to think about that, because there was a story already starting to be portrayed of how I was, which was different to how she was relating me to be. So there was already a little bit of manipulation happening there. The point of that story is that after we started to mend things together, I was getting a marriage counsellor involved, trying to keep things together. That friend actually came over. We were just having like a lunch outside. We were living in a townhouse at that time. And I remember showing, because I was doing a lot of different memes and stuff like that. I'm actually quite a creative person. And I was showing the friend like this meme of like avocado on toast sort of thing. And the friend actually found it quite funny. On the surface, she probably walked away thinking, well, that was a good interaction. They were actually, it looks like they're mending and all that. It's going to have a happy outcome. I'm assuming. I can't say what she was thinking. But on the surface, there was no arguments. There was nothing. After she left, there definitely was. So what my ex-wife was actually angry at me and actually at the friend was that the friend was laughing at my meme. She was angry at the friend because she wasn't angry to the appropriate level of anger and despise that she should have been towards me. Keep in mind, I was the one that tried to end it the first time. And also that, her laughing at my meme was her showing interest in me as a person, romantic interest. So on two things, it's like she's angry at both me, because there was a yelling match after that interaction. She's angry at the friend for not being appropriately angry at me for ending a relationship because I was getting like emotionally abused. And two, that, that also the friend is having romantic interest in me. I really don't care what she thinks, because once again, it's different to the reality. I don't have interaction with that person anymore, with that psychologist friend. I actually ended it because it's actually hard to actually explain to a person what happens behind closed doors without making you seem like a bad person, because people just go, oh, you should just move on and all this crap that I face sort of thing. Sometimes speaking up about something, people don't want to hear the issue because then they have to deal with the issue, and it's such an inconvenience. It's better to look the other way, like that bystander effect tapping that I did. But there was a commonality of like jealousy towards anyone that showed interest to me, and anyone that I showed interest, as in like a friendship back. Anyone that saw me as a person, saw the value that I could actually have, or that sometimes that I might have information that might be a little bit more correct than the actual trained social worker, then that was seen as a point of competition, which normally when there was interactions, like when we would get together either with her family or my family or with friends and all that, I would be sitting there silent. I wouldn't actually be communicating because I started to learn that it's better to keep my mouth shut than to suffer the consequences of speaking up. Because to speak up for yourself, you start to have your own sense of value, your own sense of worth, your own boundaries, your own who you are as an individual, which is not allowed in that sort of situation. You're there to be seen and not heard. That saying is actually very true when it comes to emotional abuse. That source of jealousy is that, and that source of like, even to look at the friends of what she had as capable of doing that, is not even valuing the friends. And this is what I started to find, because even with that, like that friend, like later on, any romantic fantasy that she had in her mind, cutting it dry, because we caught up another time, and I was just once again just sitting there quiet whilst talking, having their meeting of the minds, and mentioned that I think that all people that watch Netflix are just brain dead or zombies, and that, which makes me look like a bad person, because I'm just sort of saying anyone with a Netflix account is a zombie. Within context, I sort of said, if you are wanting to achieve something in your life and you're fixated either on Netflix or on some form of addiction where you're not actually doing the thing that you're wanting to do, then it's kind of like you're going to be brain dead. You're going to be zombie, because all your focus on is on the Netflix. You're not actually focused on the goal. That's the context of what I said it in. But in order to make me look bad, to suffer the consequences, to make me look like, well, this person really values watching Netflix. That's their way of unwinding. I play video games. That's my way of unwinding. You could say that I'm brain dead, which is weaponizing parts of what a person says to make you look bad so that they look good. Similar to like with my mother and all that, like having friends over and divulging your personal information as a point of comedy, as something to laugh about. So it's one of those things where it's like, well, I'll just devalue this person in public, and if the public laughs, then you've got no one really there as a support, which is another reason why, like, cutting a lot of my contacts, even though some of them probably didn't deserve it, like the friend that, like the psychologist friend, a good person, but once again, me trying to say these things about a friend that's a friend of hers makes me look like the bad person, even though, it's screwed up. And once again, if a person's not ready to accept the other side of the coin, you just got to toss it away until they are, because you can't actually like either teach someone or tell someone that doesn't want to accept it. They've already made up their mind. Where you start to be fearful of the consequences is similar to how I said, like after that conversation, you get made to feel like you're guilty. It's like you actually have done a crime, you actually have had an affair that you're completely unaware of and the other person's unaware of. You in that argument, you're torn. It's like a trial. You're having to testify that you're faithful and that you're committed to that person as a test to see if that person actually thinks that you're going to leave, because that's actually what it's about. But you get demoralized in that, and you get to doubt yourself. It's like you start to think to yourself, well, like, if I'm ever around that person again, I won't say anything, because if I don't say anything, then I can't be held accountable to actions that I never committed to in the first place. So you start to live in fear of the repercussions of what this person, with a false sense of self, with a fragile sense of pride, sense of identity, that if anyone sort of shines a little bit above them, they have to tear that down to the point where you're just sitting there mute on a chair. And then this is where it's not good enough. Near enough is not good enough with that sort of manipulation, because it goes beyond it. So you're sitting there mute, you're not saying anything, and now you're seen as a person that doesn't make friends because you're not speaking up for yourself. So even though you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And now that you have to go out and make friends, and you have to go out and do all these things with, like, you've just been demoralized, you've just been told that you're all these crappy things, and now you have to actually go out and do the very thing that they didn't want you to do. Be seen, make connections, have friends that you might have potential affairs with. You now have to go out and do that on a leash, that is, because what will happen is you'll start to get texts. Where are you? What are you up to? Why are you spending so much time with that person? Oh, are you having an affair with that person? What did she mean by that? Or what did he mean by that sort of thing? So it's almost like casting the bait out and then reeling it back in, and then casting it out and reeling it back in, or just a constant whipping sort of thing, because you're told to make friends, But those friends are once again seen as another thing that might take you away from that source of dependency that that person has latched on to you with, and is just clawing you every time that you might get a sense of like self-worth. But the other thing is that when you have that source of testing, that source of like, will that person go away? There's a bit of also manipulation where like things that I was being told in the relationship was different to like wanting to stay in the relationship, because she was talking about how she would be better off with another person that was more financially abundant. The other thing is, and this is what my marriage counselor, who I still see, found kind of, well, in his words, disgusting, was that in that testing of like, because she would ask me like, who would your ideal partner would be, or like almost like what would your life be without me in it, like testing to see who my ideal person was in a way. But it went a step further, because even in our intimate moments when we are basically having sexual intercourse, let's go there, she was telling me how to be a better sexual partner, not for her, but for other people. So even in, as my counselor said, even in our most intimate moments where we're connecting on that physical and emotional level, she's teaching me how to be with other people. Yet I'm not allowed to be with other people because then I'm cheating. Can you sort of see the manipulation and bullshittery happening here? It's pretty messed up. And once again, having a social work degree is different to actually applying counselling and therapy to oneself. It's completely separate. It's idiotic to even think that. So for me, it's like I was in a relationship where I was being almost groomed to be in another relationship, but not allowed to, and suffering the arguments, the yelling, the like, just like the demoralizing of my character, to the point where I did what I should have done on the first go, but I just wasn't probably ready yet, was I cut the cord. I said, enough's enough, and took the wedding ring off, tossed it back to her onto the bed, and what I actually got in return was what was already sitting there, just disguised behind the, no, I am sorry, I will change, all this bullshittery was what was sitting there the whole time, anger. She was fuming that I was now serious about my, putting my foot down, basically, serious about maintaining my self-worth, to say no. And I didn't make eye contact then, because I didn't want to engage with that angry glare that I feared so much. That just contained so much malice. It was scary. It was fuming. And sometimes I would come home and that would be there, and I'd be like, do I engage with this? But if I don't, then I'm seen as a bad person, and I'll get yelled at for not engaging and basically being that dumping toxic ground. So the repercussions are from all the insecurities from a person that didn't trust in someone else because they couldn't trust within their own selves. And it comes probably from like her own background, her own family origin. And I've spoken in the past about speaking of these experiences, and it's hard to actually speak about these experiences because complex post-traumatic stress disorder is just not a one-time event. There's multiple. So I could speak about a lot of things and leave a lot of things out. And to speak about a lot of things is actually a very long video. But what I think I might do is, because for me, it's not that hard to understand if you actually are willing to look at one's own stuff. And I can explain her family of origin, of why they were like that, because it's more than just her. And I can also explain my family of origin, because the one person I haven't spoken about a lot is my sister, who was the first pioneer of saying, this nest is broken, I'm out of here. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for her and she passed away. Things were not right within the environment, and any person that was trying to get themselves right was seen as wrong, because then you'd be seen as leaving. So it's better to tear down the person that's trying to get healthy and keep them within that unhealthy environment. So for me now, when I do go to Pilates, it's having that awareness of, okay, so I'm not shy, I'm scared. I'm scared of the repercussions, scared of actually like having that conversation, because then like I'm having to go back to a person that's no longer there. Once again, with trauma, it keeps reliving in the body. To report back and say, well, this is the interaction I had. Okay, here's the argument because I'm having an affair. Or that I looked at a person for a little bit too long, or that person that laughed at my joke is now showing interest in me, so therefore it's my fault. And I should just keep my mouth shut. So having that awareness is that awareness to actually start to change that behavior, to go against basically crap teachings, and to teach myself that no, if people are showing me interest, to feel the fear and do it anyway. To actually, and as I said, I've asked people in the past, so I'm capable of doing it, but to start to not look down, but look back, and look back at the people that are looking at me for who I am, and not the things that someone's telling me to be, so that I end up looking downwards again. So it's going to take bravery and it's going to take change, but in order for me to actually have a relationship and actually be, with a person, is to actually start to break the chains of what was holding me back, and chains that weren't mine to have put on. It was someone else's insecurity. There's a lot of insecurity as just a person that wants more control in their life. How can I control my environment because I feel insecure? So for me, I want good stuff. I've already met a great mate that's very caring and there for me, and that would be nice to have also within a relationship. But yeah, it would be nice to actually have, but it also takes me to actually start to break the shit that should have been put on me. And I think, if anything from this chat, look to like where you feel these fears within your body and where you are telling yourself that you're unworthy, but go at it with a curious mind to see where this might be coming from, because is it a learnt behavior, or is it just part of our natural fear response? Like there could be like walking off a cliff, there's good fear around not like keeping yourself safe, but like there's other things where we're telling ourselves that we're crappy people. Where did that come from? Where did we learn that? So I'm down from Inflation Support Services, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.